December 1975, Rochester, New York. A 24-year-old engineer walks into a room of Kodak executives carrying something that looks like a blue toaster with a lens taped to it. He points it at a lab assistant. Click. And then everyone waits. 23 seconds of silence while the machine writes the picture onto a cassette tape. Then a grainy square face appears on a television set, and nobody in the room says anything at all. The engineer is Steve Sasson. The blue box is the first digital camera anyone has ever built. 10,000 pixels, about 1/100th of a megapixel, which is roughly the resolution of the thumbnail preview on the phone in your pocket. It runs on 16 nickel-cadmium batteries and weighs about 8 pounds. He is not a rebel, and he is not on a mission. His boss handed him a spare part, a new light sensor from Fairchild, and asked a lazy question. Is this thing good for anything? 6 months later, Sasson has an answer, and the answer is a photograph with no film in it. He is genuinely proud. He thinks he is going to be a hero. So here is the question the executives are actually asking themselves in that silence. Not, does it work? They can see that it works. They are asking, what happens to us if it does? Because every bonus in that room was calculated on one thing. How many rolls of film left the plant this quarter? And to understand why that question lands so hard, you have to look at what Kodak was, not a camera company. Almost nobody understands this. Kodak sold cameras the way a bar sells the first drink. In 1975, a simple Instamatic costs about $28, call it $160 in today's money. Kodak barely makes a cent on it. The camera is not the product. The camera is the hook. The product is the roll of film you buy for it, and then the second roll, and the envelope you mail in to get the pictures developed, and the paper they are printed on, and the chemicals in the tank. In the 70s, Kodak makes something like 70 cents of gross profit on every dollar of that film. 70. A supermarket makes 2. Walk into an American drugstore in 1976, and you can see the machine working. There is a yellow box on every counter. There is a photo counter at the back where you drop off an envelope on Monday and pick up your holiday in a paper sleeve on Friday. Kodak owns roughly 90% of the film sold in the country. It is not a market. It is a toll booth, and every family with a birthday pays it. Now put Sasson's blue box on the table next to that. A camera with no film, no roll to sell, no envelope to mail, no paper, no chemicals. You would not just be launching a product, you would be aiming a gun at the 70 cents, which means the better the camera worked, the faster it ate the company that built it. And this is where the story stops being about technology. Sasson gets asked practical questions, and the questions are not stupid. How would anyone look at these pictures? Televisions are in living rooms, not pockets. Who wants a photo you cannot hold? When would this be any good? He answers honestly, about 15 to 20 years. He is off by 2 years. 1995, 20 years later, almost to the month, the first cheap consumer digital cameras hit the shelves. In the meeting, though, 20 years sounds like never. 20 years is 2 careers. Nobody in that room will be judged on 1995, and everyone in it will be judged on next quarter's film volume. That is why 20 years was not a warning to them. It was permission, so they give him the sentence. Sasson has told this story many times, and it never gets less strange. They told him it was cute, and then to make sure nobody heard about it. Not kill it, not keep working. Show it inside the building if you must, and keep your mouth shut outside it. Think about how cheap that decision felt in the room. It costs nothing. No layoffs, no write-off, no press release, no argument with the board. It is a shrug, and a shrug is the most expensive thing in this entire story. Kodak does patent it. 1978, patent 4074252, electronic still camera. The invention is now legally theirs and physically nowhere. Sasson goes back to other work. The prototype goes into storage. The photograph nobody was allowed to talk about sits on a cassette tape in a building in Rochester. And for a while, honestly, the shrug looks correct. The 80s are Kodak's best decade. Film volumes climb. 1988, the company employs about 145,000 people worldwide. In 1996, the stock peaks and the company is worth about $30 billion. Call it $60 billion today. Nothing is broken. Everything is fine. That is the part that should scare you, because a toll booth does not fail gradually. 1999, 1 in 100 cameras sold in America is digital. 2003, 1 in 3. 2005, more than half. And film does not decline like a curve, it falls off a table. From about 1 billion rolls a year in the United States down toward nothing inside a decade. Here is the cruel detail. Kodak is not asleep in those years. It sells digital cameras. For a while, it is #1 in America. It buys a photo sharing site before Instagram exists. But look at what it costs them to be there. On some models, they lose money on every single camera because a digital camera has no second purchase behind it. No film, no envelope, no paper. Selling a razor when your entire company was built on blades. Meanwhile, the patent is doing exactly what patents do. Through the 2000s, Kodak licenses its digital imaging patents to almost everyone who makes a phone or a camera and collects, by most accounts, over $3 billion in royalties. Kodak got paid for the future it refused to sell. Except royalties have an expiry date printed on them. A patent lasts 20 years. Sasson's runs out in 1998, right at the moment digital photography starts to matter. And since the patent was filed in '78, the clock started while the market did not exist yet. So by the time the market Kodak invented is the biggest market in imaging, Kodak's legal claim on it has already gone quiet. So the money runs out the way it always does, quietly and then all at once. Factories in Rochester come down. The photo counters disappear from the drugstores, and the people who worked there watch a company that had been the safest job in town for 80 years stop being that. January 19, 2012, Kodak files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. 131 years old. At the end, it employs about 17,000 people, down from 145,000. Same brand, same yellow, same town, 1/8 of the people. And the same year, on the other side of the same industry, a company with 13 employees and no revenue sells for $1 billion because it does the one thing Kodak understood better than anyone for a century. It made people want to share pictures. Instagram. 13 people. Kodak had 145,000. Now, the easy version of this story is they were blind. They were not blind. They ran the numbers, they were right about the numbers, and the numbers killed them. Look, digital in 1975 was worse in every way a spreadsheet can measure. Worse pictures, higher cost, no way to view them 20 years out. What the spreadsheet could not price was the drawer, not the invention, the silence around it. For 18 years, the company that owned the future treated it as an embarrassment. And 18 years is exactly how long it takes a habit to become a wall. Steve Sasson kept working at Kodak for over 30 years. He got the National Medal of Technology from the president in 2009, standing in a suit next to the company that once told him to keep quiet about the thing he was being decorated for. Kodak, to its credit, sent him to the ceremony. He has said the applause was nice. He has also said, more than once, that he still remembers the room. So what was the drawer worth? Try it as arithmetic. $30 billion of market value. Gone. 128,000 jobs. Gone. $3 billion in royalties collected and then finished. One prototype kept in a box for 18 years, worth exactly nothing the whole time it was in there, because a thing nobody is allowed to mention cannot be sold, and a thing that cannot be sold has no price. And if you want the honest lesson, it is not embrace change. That is a poster, not a lesson. It is narrower and it is meaner. Kodak's most profitable product was also the thing it could not afford to look at. Ask yourself what that is at your job. Everybody has one. One last number, because this one still gets me. The first digital photograph in history was black and white, 100 by 100 pixels, and it took 23 seconds to write. It is on a cassette tape somewhere in Rochester. The company that took it was worth $30 billion, and it spent 18 years making sure you did not see it. If you want the next one of these, a company, a number, and one decision that turned out to cost everything, subscribe and tell me in the comments which drawer you would open. Next time, a catalog company that sold entire houses by mail and quit the catalog 2 years before Amazon existed.